I'm going to be completely honest in this video and give my real opinions and thoughts on social media marketing agencies and if you should even really start. Now, who am I to give these opinions? I'm no one really, but I have made an agency easier to follow and you don't get too lost in my blabbering. So the first point I want to talk about is actually setting up your agency. Now, this is honestly a lot easier and it's actually done wrong in a lot of ways. People think setting up an agency should take a long time, the logo and all these things, when in reality, all you really need to do is kind of create somewhat of a name and then start outreaching to people. Now, yes, it's kind of nice sometimes to have a website and to have a spot where guys can actually check you out, like an Instagram or a Facebook page. Now, the tough reality about setting up an agency though is that this space is pretty saturated as it is. Like the word saturation to me though in this agency space is not really like an actual word, because in a lot of business ideas or in business spaces, there is lots of saturation, right? And it's kind of based on how you do things and how you approach things to make it less saturated or more saturated. Like if you go for a really, popular niche, obviously it's going to be a lot harder to get a client in that niche. So that's the first point. Let's go into the second point. Actually getting your first client. Now, this is probably the hardest one out of all of them because, well, actually no, the next point is also pretty tough, but this one is the toughest first point that everyone deals with. Even I did for like months. I had no clients. It was tough. Now, actually getting your first client is obviously a lot harder said than done because people on YouTube or on Instagram will say, all these things and give you these scripts. When in reality, a lot of these scripts, they might give you some responses, but actually signing your first client takes a lot of work. First, you got to outreach to them, get their information, call to them or DM them, get a response from them, talk to them into actually signing or into booking an appointment with you. From there, you can hopefully try to close them. That's a lot of steps to get one client, and a lot of times they don't end up closing. Now, if you are good enough or lucky enough or whatever it is you want to call it to get them into your booked appointment where you can actually start talking to them and showing them what you want to do for them, that's when it gets a little easier because those close rates are a lot higher than it is to get them into your booked calendar. But it is still a very tough thing, and it took me like 2 months to even get my first work, and my first client was a family friend client that I worked with, so it wasn't even technically like a real client that I outreached to. My mom just told someone about my stuff and then they were like, hey, I'll give them a chance, and they gave me a chance, and I actually still work with them to this day on like one-off jobs here and there. Now, how can you make this point easier on yourself? If you can get testimonials in any way that it is in your service, that's probably one of the best ways to do it. And I don't mean, getting your first client testimonial. I mean like just doing the work somewhere, even if it's on your own like website or your own thing that you just built to get a testimonial is huge, because those proof of concepts are what will separate you from the saturated wave, okay? Because that's what most people are. They're in that wave of like, I'm new, don't know what I'm talking about, but let me try to get you as my client. Anyways, that point was a little scattered, my bad, but you probably get what I'm talking about. The third point, and maybe the last point of this video, this could arguably be the hardest one out of all of them, and that's actually getting your client the results that you promised them. Like after all that work of setting up your agency, getting your first client, outreaching, and doing all these things, you finally get a client, and if you can't actually get them the results as you wanted to get them, or you don't actually know what you're doing, then that can, bite you in the butt real quickly, and your agency can go from a high to a below the ground level of like, whoa, like you had it in your hands, you were doing well, and now you're ground level 0. Which, listen, that's gonna happen, okay? It happens in agencies. People have done this before, and it happens to everyone. It happened to me once. I went down to 0 clients. But guess what? If you got your first client once, you could probably get your second client a lot quicker because you know what you're doing now. Now, getting the results for your client obviously is not the easiest task, but if you actually did your research and did your work and your homework, it should not be that hard to do, especially if you're running like ads. Because ads, a lot of times, sometimes there's a luck factor to it of like, when people are watching ads or when people are on social media or when the right customers and eyes are on social media. Now, again, there's a bad side to that where if you don't get them the results, they can get upset. They can, ask for the money back. You might have to refund them. You might even have to pay them back because sometimes, people will do an offer where you'll pay them money if you don't get them that result. So the conclusion of this video, should you start an agency in 2024? Should you actually even give it a chance? And in my opinion, I think if you want to really make money online, it's one of the best ways to go. And I say this because a lot of dropshipping and all these other things like these, these mainstream stuff, SMMA is mainstream, but it's more of a business than it is actually like a mainstream trending thing. Because SMMA is a real thing that businesses need or they want, right? You don't have to be a social media marketing agency. You can do copywriting only. You can do, you can do the back end stuff like some SaaS, building softwares for them. Now, the downside to SMMA though, you're working quite a bit of hours to get your agency off the ground. And once it's off the ground, you're kind of stuck. You kind of have to keep going and you can't really do much for yourself online because you have to make sure your clients are getting the results. Now, once you get money coming in, you can hire guys, you can hire a media buyer to do like the dirtier work or like, the back end work for you, which will take off a huge load off your shoulders and which will also make you focus on getting clients. Because once you get like 3 or 4 clients, you're kind of like really set. You're in a very good spot. You can hire some guys to help you. That's when your agency can really go go from like literally 4 or 5K, 3K a month to 10 to 20K a month. And I've seen it happen in Discords. Goodbye. Okay, I'm rambling.